Good evening, everybody. It is the Safety and the Sportswriter show with Knoxville Nate and Big Joe as we come to talk to you on the 14th of March, 5:30. It is springtime up here, at least for me, Nate. We're hitting 70 degrees today as we get ready. We have the basketball tournaments going on, everything going on there. But the biggest thing is a lot of football players are changing addresses. Nate, how you doing?
I'm doing good, buddy. Yeah, it's been pretty crazy. There's so many of these 1 year deals every season. There's over 120 of them last year. There'll be over 100 this year. All these guys, 100, at least 100 and something of them are going to hit free agency again next year. Not to
Right.
mention all the guys whose contracts expire. So it's basically the musical chairs of the NFL, and it's where do you fall? And we're going to get into it a lot today, and I'm really excited to talk about it because I've got some pretty deep opinions on several of these signings and some things that some signings that haven't happened. I've got feelings about those too.
All right, I want to start out with the nine guys that were officially released. Nine big names, I'd say. We knew Russell Wilson was traded or released, whatever you want to say, but I mean he was gone. Jimmy Garoppolo, no big mystery there. You got
That,
Michael.
see, that's where I differ. There is a big mystery to me because what the hell were they doing? Why did they sign him to this big contract? Why did they bring him in and then halfway through the season they just kind of decided that they didn't want him anymore? I will never understand that, and that makes no sense to me.
I think it's all linked to the Josh McDaniel. The thought that he had been there in New England with Josh. He was a veteran. He led a team to a Super Bowl once. He led a team to a couple of championship games in San Francisco. Of course, everybody knew it. Look, I openly root for Garoppolo. I think he's a good guy. I mean, I think he's one of those guys. We talked at length about him and up in Detroit, Goff, how they took demotions and trades without being jackasses about it. So you root for a guy like that over people that maybe don't deserve a second chance, but keep getting him. But anyways, the thing about him is I don't know where he can land. I now I look at him and I go even as a backup. I mean, maybe backing up C.J. Stroud, maybe backing up in Miami. Um, but at the same point, is he going to be the answer if he comes in and gets injured right away? I mean, this guy just can't stay healthy.
Yeah, he's had some injuries, but this year he wasn't injured. They just didn't play him. And if you don't think that he's better than Aiden O'Connell, then I've got some, oceanfront property to sell you in Arkansas. I mean, he could have given them a lot better chance to win games than Aiden O'Connell did. And I know the company line. Well, we wanted to see what we had. Well, what you had is Aiden O'Connell. I mean,
Yeah.
what the fuck you want? What do you want to? What do you want me to say? That's Aiden O'Connell. I'm sorry, but Jimmy Garoppolo is better than Aiden O'Connell, and could have given them, a better chance of winning football games. So I don't understand why they chose not to play him anymore. It made no sense.
Well, let me get into it. Let me do a little speculation here, and you tell me if I'm far off the course. I mean, if you put a couple of things together, first of all, he gets to the Raiders. They give him that big contract, and he's looked at as Josh McDaniel guy. Josh McDaniel is hated in the locker room. You're Pierce, and you're taking over, and you're pretty much going nowhere. But you got to win the locker room over, especially if you're going to keep this job. Um, wouldn't you want to separate yourself as much as you can from being McDaniel's guy?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, but I mean, my whole thing is, I mean, regardless, that's the other thing too. Why did you hire Josh McDaniels if you weren't going to give him time, to win? I mean, I don't think he ever was going to, but they made an investment in him, and they went out and nabbed him and took him away, from his offensive coordinator position, like they wanted him to be their coach for some time, and then they fire him, halfway through season two.
Well,
So, I just don't get it. I mean, do I think the guy's a good head coach? No. Do I think that he's ever going to be a good head coach? No. I really don't. But I'm not the Raiders. I'm not the team that hired him, gave him this big, stack of cash, and told everybody that he was supposed to be our coach for the next 4 or 5 years. Nothing that the Raiders do makes any sense. I'm sorry.
Well, I think it's become the trend, and maybe we didn't look at it, years ago when we were growing up. But the amount of coaches that they bring in that fail and get fired and sent around the league. I mean, and guys that come to mind were like Dan Hennings, um, you know, who else? Marion Campbell. I mean, there's a litany of coaches that weren't coaches; they were coordinators or assistant coaches. They're given chances over and over again, and whether the owners don't do their due diligence or don't do the right things. I mean, it's something that happens had been happening in football forever. But the thing about Josh McDaniel is the other point of the coin, or the flip of the coin there, is Belichick. What you should have learned from Charlie Weiss, Romeo Crennel, Josh McDaniel, just to name a few. I mean,
Matt Patricia.
I mean,
Joe Judge.
Right. I mean, Bill Belichick is maybe the only coach in the history of football that can handle coaching both sides of the ball and the special teams and be involved in everything. He sees the big picture, knows how to coach everything, and he coaches the coaches to coach the players. But he's the puppet master, and there's enough evidence out there. You don't get a Belichick coach, because Don Shula used to be the same way. Don Shula had a bunch of coaches that were under him that were great assistant coaches, but whenever he went anywhere else, they failed because he knew how to put his thumb on the problem, take care of it, make sure they were doing the right thing. When they got on their own, they were just like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's also, where you go, but a lot of times these guys, I mean, Matt Patricia got a good chance. I mean, they let him operate in Detroit for a couple of years. So, I mean, that was proven. But then, some of these guys never get a chance anymore. And it's hard in some instances to build a team in a year, or, change a culture in a year. And that's kind of what's expected now. You're supposed to win immediately, and you're supposed to turn things around in 2 years minimum. And that's just not possible in some instances, in my opinion.
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with a lot of it has to do with the trend in media today too. Is the media people, there's too many talking heads out there that are putting crap out there, and some of these owners listen to it. It's kind of crazy.
Well, I mean, just think about the Panthers. They went out and got Frank Reich and hired him to be the coach to bring along Bryce Young. And, 11, 12 games into season one, they're firing his ass. I mean, what would you want to be a coach in Carolina? I wouldn't take that job. Well, I might for several $1,000,000, but if I was a good coach and had a solid resume, I wouldn't go near that place with a 10-foot pole.
The whole thing that bothers me is, like, I listen to a lot of sports radio and I listen to a lot of sports TV, and they try and make it into a mathematical equation. First, you got to get your GM. Then you got to get your coach. Then you got to get your quarterback. Then you got to, you can't just sit there and say every place you go, it's going to work perfectly in that order. And that's why I think a lot of these coaches are brought in, and like you said, they're not given time to put their stuff together, put their players together. A lot of things, I think that they're all competing a lot for the same assistant coaches, and some of these guys don't know how to coach their assistant coaches. So I mean, it's not something that is easily taken care of, and they try and make it seem so easy when you tune into these sports talk shows. Like, well, why can't they just go out and get this? You like, to paraphrase freaking Bill Parcells, you can't go 1-800 brilliant offensive coordinator, 1-800 brilliant defensive coordinator, 1-800 quarterback. It doesn't work that way. But I mean, unfortunately, that's the system that's in. That's the system we watch. That's the system we root for, and we are stuck with it. And let's get right to it. I mean, the guy, we knew it. The decision had to come down on Saquon Barkley, and it's a shock to the system for me. For me, I take it in a case of a pride situation because I kind of liked it when they picked him. I thought he was the best player available in the draft. Unfortunately, um, you go through how many coaches, how many different coordinators, never put an offensive line in front of him. They were trying to squeeze a couple more years out of Eli at the time. I mean, there's a litany of things to say that it didn't work out for a reason. I'm not going to call him a bust. Injuries take away from a lot of his totals. When he was healthy, he did the job. But I will say this about the whole situation. If you're going to bring up, they should have gotten a quarterback. I bring up Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen. Where would we be if they got them?
If who got them?
The Giants.
Yeah. Well, what I'm just very curious as to what the plan is. You don't sign, your franchise running back. You let him go to one of your biggest rivals, and then you bring in Devin Singletary to replace him. And then you there's all this talk about bringing in a veteran to push Daniel Jones, and you settle on Drew Lock. I mean, do you think that this team got better in the last few days? Because I think they got way worse.
I don't think they got better. I don't know if they've. I don't know if they find, and if they're doing it, then what I'm thinking right now is and it is bizarre in today's football. Is they came into a situation where they were strapped by the salary cap. Shane had to break that down. They had success initially and unexpected success initially, and which turned out to be fool's gold. And now they're coming back, and maybe they got the okay from the Mara and Tish to sit there and go, break it down and let's fix this thing once and for all. Let's try and move things around. Drew Lock, I would hope that's not the last move. I mean, they went out to get it. He was available. Bring him in. It's not. How much did they spend on him? I didn't see it.
Not much.
Okay, so you bring him in. I don't think he'll be there. Singletary. The only thing I'd say about Singletary, he's kind of on the back end of his career, which I don't like about that. Daboll's familiarity with him, maybe as a backup running back, or they're going to do a two-headed monster or three-headed monster in the backfield. At least he knows the Daboll system. Daboll's used to him.
Who's the monster? I mean, Singletary's the starter.
No. But I mean, you see what they get in the draft. Maybe in the later rounds, they pick up a running back, a rookie that could come in and be like an effective two-back system. I don't know. We're going to get a more concise picture of this after the draft. But I wonder one thing, and I said this to you last week. I'm looking at the Giants before this whole thing was going on. I don't want to see I like Daboll. I really do like Daboll. I think given time, he can fix this thing. But this thing has been out of whack for almost a decade now. I mean, when did Coughlin leave? 2014? 2015?
Yeah, sounds right.
So it's been a decade of this crap now. A decade. You had 2 playoff years in a decade. And they've never come to the realization of we got to get it right. I remember the Giants in the 70s when they were really bad, and this team's getting close to what that team was. Not as bad. I mean, that team used to win 3-4 games a year consistently with no future in half. And it took George Young to break it down. Finally, he brought in Ray Perkins, who did a really good job starting to turn around, and then he got Parcells, and that you got a decade of winning out of it. So I'm trying to. I understand what you're saying, and you're totally right. But I'm hoping it's one of those things where these guys finally come to the realization. Like I said to you last week, what do they have to do to beat Philadelphia and beat Dallas first? They got to figure that out. And even if they brought back Saquon, I don't see him leapfrogging over those 2 teams. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's not like Saquon was a huge hit against the cap. That's my whole point. Is they're one of the teams that has one of the worst cap situations. They have like $4 million
Okay.
below the cap. Okay. And then you've got Daniel Jones counting $47.1 million as a cap hit this year. You've
Yeah.
got Andrew Thomas, 23.6 cap hit this year. Brian Burns now 23.5. I think he's an upgrade, so I like that pickup.
Yeah.
But then you got Dexter Lawrence 22 million, Darren Waller 14 million. I mean, why not cut Darren Waller?
Yeah.
I mean, the guy didn't do anything for you last year. He's talking about retirement. Why not cut him? I mean, it'll save
I
you
agree with that.
it'll save you $7 million against the cap. I mean, he's only a $7 million dead cap hit, and he's a $14 million cap hit on the roster. So why don't you cut him and move on? I mean, there's just easy things that you could do that could improve this cap situation and get this team into a rebuild mode, like you talked about, because they're really not rebuilding when they don't have anywhere else to go right now. They can't sign anybody else. They don't have any money, and their draft. You know, it's not like they've got the first pick in the draft. I mean, I understand they've got some picks, but you know, I don't have any real belief that he's going to go out and just draft to the moon with some of the picks that he's gotten up to this point.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the whole thing is I wish I had the plan. I wish they'd come on here and talk to us about it, because it would be nice as a Giant fan to hear it, because the fact of the matter is there seems to be no plan. And believe me, I did not want to see Barkley go away. But the other thing about Barkley, and I'm not trying to tear down. I root for Saquon. Well, not anymore, but I've always rooted for Saquon. I thought he was a good man. He did the job. But the thing that always frustrated me about Saquon is, if you watched him religiously, he would get about 20, 25 carries a game in most games. And about 6 of them were really good carries. Like he'd go into halftime with something like 7 carries, 21 yards. But then he'd come out of halftime and he'd break a 40-yarder, or he'd break a 30-yarder or a 50-yarder. And now his numbers over the course of the game look a lot better. He was not he had never had a good offensive line in front of him.
Yeah. Well, my point to that is wait and watch, because now you're gonna see what Saquon Barkley can do.
Yeah, because he has an offensive line in front of him.
Yeah, and wide receivers that the quarterback can throw the football to. A quarterback who can throw and run the football. A defense that if they fumble the ball, they're not going to score right away. I mean, he's on a good football team now, and he's got people around him, and it's not just Saquon or bust. Yeah. I think you're going to see what he can do, and I think he's going to look really good for the Eagles, because this past year I'm not really 100% sold on DeAndre Swift, but he looks pretty good on the Eagles. And I think, they saw right away, like, this guy was a downgrade from Miles Sanders, and he was. And look what Miles Sanders did in Carolina. Buckets, nothing. So, it depends on what team you're on, and also, what you've got personally. So I think it's going to be a good fit in Philadelphia, to say the least.
Well, like I said, I'm at this point with the Giants, I'm going to wait till after. I know they're up the creek without a paddle right now, but I mean, it's just I just hope this is not going to be all right. Daboll and Shane didn't do. I hope they have something in their minds, because I can't go through this every 2 years or 3 years. Oh, we're not really rebuilding. We just bring in a new coach because this coach wasn't doing his job. No, you've been rebuilding for 10 years, and you tried so many different freaking builders, and now you're just treading water. So let's get it together and get it done. I just, like you said, I wish I had answers. All I have is speculation. I'd love to have a insider who actually would get something out of these guys that could tell you this is where they're heading. This is what they're thinking.
I don't think they have any clue what they're doing, and that's the problem. But I want to get your opinion first on I personally don't think that the Falcons are going to go to the Super Bowl, but a lot of people feel like Kirk Cousins is shifted that whole division now, and that the Falcons are the front runners just because they got Kirk Cousins. Do you agree with that?
Well, let's see. We talked about this a while ago about this. I say, like, a great quarterback going to a new team is worth about 3 to 4 wins. But what did they have? 8 wins last year?
They were 7-10 last year.
7-10. So you're talking about a 10 or 11 win. If he stays healthy, a 10 or 11 win team. I think he's going to improve them, a couple of wins. And in that division, I mean, the Buccaneers are going to be there. Did they do anything with Baker yet?
Yeah, Baker is signed. Baker made him some money, man. I'm really happy for him.
Yeah.
Baker got 3 years, $115 million.
Good.
It's a good deal for him. It's a good deal for the club. He wanted them to bring Mike Evans back. In order for them to do that, he had to take a little bit less money. I think he was okay with that. They took a chance on him last year. I really think this is a good place for him. He likes the coaches there. He likes his teammates. Everything went well. So 3 years, $115 million for Baker. And, if this year goes well, next year goes well, they're going to want to extend him, and he's going to get to do this all over again and get a whole bunch more money. So I think it's a really good fit, a really good signing for the Buccaneers and also for Baker, getting him done.
I think Baker made enough off those commercials that he shouldn't have to worry about money the rest of his life.
Well, I'm just saying.
I'm just saying.
He didn't get rich off his rookie deal. With the new rookie wage scale, he was the number 1 pick in the draft, but that equals out to be about $23 million. So I think it was important for him to get what he deserved.
He deserved it. And I think, it's going to come down probably to the Buccaneers and Falcons, as always, depending on the health and situations in that. I think the New Orleans Saints are, with Dennis Allen, are going to be a mess again.
Yeah.
And I think, Carolina is Carolina. So it's going to come down to those teams. So if you look at it that way, I can see Kirk Cousins. I don't see Super Bowl, but as he's shown in Washington and Minnesota, he can get you to the playoffs.
Yeah, he can get you to the playoffs. Can he win there? I don't know, but he could potentially get you there. I think it's a good move for Atlanta. I mean, let's be honest. Last year was a disaster with Taylor Heineke and Desmond Ridder. I know no one's going to remember this, but Nate told you that Desmond Ridder was not an NFL quarterback.
No.
I don't know why some people thought he was, but he was not. And he looked bad doing what he was doing. And, now they've got a bona fide starter, but the problem is he's coming off a ruptured Achilles tendon. And, we don't know what he's going to look like coming off of a ruptured Achilles. I mean, Dan Marino, who was a statue before he ruptured his Achilles, was a, marble statue afterwards. So, I know medicine's gotten better. Maybe, it'll look all right. But this guy couldn't move a whole lot before. So I'm interested to see what he looks like after that. And we talked all last show about your boy, Russ Wilson. And now he's found a home. And today I saw him getting his hair cut up in Pittsburgh, and he was showing pictures of his jersey for sale and the thing. Russ can get a haircut. Russ can switch teams, but that doesn't mean Russ is going to be good again, Joe. I just don't buy it.
Well, it's going to be interesting because, first of all, now you have Travis Henry up in Baltimore. Derrick Henry, sorry, Travis, I misread, but Derrick Henry up in Baltimore, which can only make that team better. And they finally have a bell cow they can give the ball to, and so you got that there. You got Cincinnati, who, hopefully, Joe, it should be okay this for Joe Burrow this year, because it seems like every other year he has a major injury, so this should be a healthy year. You got Cleveland with the best defense in the division right now. We'll see what he can do. But they also got rid of a wide receiver, so they have to replace him. And who's he coming in there?
Who got rid of a wide receiver?
Pittsburgh. Didn't they get rid of?
They got rid of Deontay Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't understand that at all.
So I mean, you bring in Russell Wilson because you have a quarterback who can't get the ball to your wide receivers. And then you cut one of the wide receivers or get rid of one of the wide receivers.
Yeah, I didn't understand. I didn't understand that trade at all. It made no sense to me. I mean, I was excited. I was like, well, can Russ cook? No, Russ sucks. But I was like, George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, the two tight ends, Freiermuth and Washington, Connor Hayward. I was like, they got some good weapons. Maybe they can make Russ look okay. Well, now you got George Pickens, and that's pretty much it.
Right.
I mean, you're talking about Calvin Austin the third. You're talking about Marquez Callaway. I don't like their receiver room at all anymore.
Right.
And Deontay Johnson, getting rid of him is huge. I think that's a horrible move by the Steelers. And this is a franchise that, is usually on point with everything they do. And getting rid of Deontay Johnson, I just do not understand it. And it makes no sense to me.
Yeah, that was the whole thing. That was everybody was putting down last year. Offensive coordinator wasn't doing the job. Kenny Pickett couldn't get the ball out of his hands, couldn't get the ball downfield. You're wasting those wide receivers. You're wasting those playmakers. So you bring in somebody who you potentially think can get the ball, and then you're wasting a play. You send a playmaker on the road. So I think you're going to get more of the same with Pittsburgh next year. They're going to be in it. Tomlin's always in it. He never loses, and we'll see what he can do. Like you said, can Russ resurrect his career, at least become not a punching bag and a laughing stock, maybe, but I don't think he's going to leapfrog. I think at best they're looking at third in that division.
Yeah, well, they traded away Deontay Johnson for, people are saying it's a good trade because they got Dante Jackson. They got the 240th pick in exchange for the 178th pick. And then they got, some compensation. But I don't see it. I mean, Deontay Johnson was, in my opinion, a difference maker. He's a guy that is, at times hard to guard. He's a guy that can make the long, take it to the house. And I just don't see that guy besides Pickens now on that team. And I think this is a good move for Carolina. Now, Kansas City was very interested in trading for Deontay Johnson. I think that the Chiefs would have been a very good spot for him. And I look at Deontay's agent and be like, man, what are you doing? You trading me to Carolina? Like, why didn't you just send me to Siberia? It's not good for him either. So I think both sides lose.
What do you think about Queen?
I think that's a huge upgrade for the Steelers. Getting Patrick Queen, adding them to their defense is monstrous, in my opinion, because this guy is a big time difference maker. Landon Roberts is a good player, and I like him, but substituting Roberts for Queen is night and day, in my opinion. You got Cole Holcomb if he can come back from injury. Now you've got Patrick Queen. Those guys will own the middle of the defense. Highsmith and Watt on the outside. This is like the, in my opinion, the old linebackers that we saw back in the day. With the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like Levon Kirkland and Greg Lloyd and Kevin Green and all those guys getting it done. Joey Porter. I mean, this is a real deal. Defensive linebacking core, and I like that move a lot.
Let's see what else we want to touch. Oh yeah, how about this one? We wanted to touch. Odell Beckham, not to my surprise, was let go. I mean, is he about done? I mean, 35.
He was done before this. This we had this talk last year.
Yeah,
I couldn't for the life of me figure out why the Ravens were giving him $18 million. There was no market for him. No one else really wanted him. And then they gave him $18 million. And for what? I didn't understand it. I think that's one of the reasons that the Ravens, didn't go further, was that they were lacking that, weapon in the wide receiver position.
On the other side from Flowers.
Exactly. And I like Flowers, but Flowers made some big time mistakes.
Yeah.
In that game that cost him dearly. And let's talk about $18 million for 3 touchdowns, $18 million for 35 catches. I think that was a horrible mistake by the Ravens. And that's an organization that usually is dead on balls accurate.
But the thing that's bothering me is, before we came on the air, I looked at it, and he's listed as one of the 9 notable cuts, okay? And the stats you just named are in the body of the freaking article. And the guy's making it seem like, Oh, there's going to be a bunch of suitors for this guy. 35 catches. Bad wide receivers catch 35 balls for 500 yards. And
yeah, especially with the MVP at quarterback.
I mean, it's just it boggles. This goes back to the Rams Super Bowl with me. 2 catches. He was injured. Okay, one was for a touchdown, and yes, he was injured in the second quarter. But the media made it out to be like he was the big difference maker, and he would have won the MVP. He might not have caught another. He never caught another ball the rest of the game. My God, these guys. The media loves this guy like they used to love Terrell Owens. They love these guys that make noise because it gives them crap to talk about.
Yeah,
When
well, I'll take Terrell Owens over that guy any day. Terrell Owens is probably better than him now, considering the shape that guy puts himself in. I don't get it, and I mean, this guy was a good player at one time, but no longer. And I don't really see the market for him at this point at all. He's 31 years old,
right,
and he's had 3
multiple
knee surgeries. I think he's done. Thank God.
I mean, just face facts of this stat you just said. He used to get 3 touchdowns in a game, and now he gets 3 touchdowns in a year.
Yeah, the entire season.
Yeah, so
35 catches on a team that had the league MVP, and saw a rookie who stepped up and played tremendous. Guy had never even been in the league before. I mean, that's who. Really showed up. Zay Flowers was the leading receiver on this team, and he was a rookie. He had 77 catches for 858 yards and 5 touchdowns. I mean, just think if they had somebody besides Odell Beckham in that wide receiver group. I still think that Baltimore needs a wideout. I think they need one, and I think they need one bad.
All right, I'm going to go down the list here. Guys we haven't talked about. Pick out some guys. See what you think about their new homes, why the old homes left. We talked about Saquon, of course. Let me just get top of my list here. All right, we talked about Kirk Cousins. Calvin Ridley going from Jacksonville to Tennessee, leaving Trevor Lawrence for Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm real glad you brought this up because this is an absolute shit show. You let a 24-year-old AJ Brown walk because you refused to pay him 4 years, $100 million, which is the contract he got in Philadelphia. But then 2 years later, you go out and bring in a 30-year-old guy who's been suspended from the league for over a year, and Calvin Ridley in for $92 million. This is a disaster. I don't know. Rand Carthon was supposed to be an upgrade over John Robinson, and I'm not sure he is. He looks to me like he has no clue what he's doing. And I've got to tell you, I think the Titans are going to suck because of it.
Another giant cap hit or giant hit here. Xavier McKinney moves out to Green Bay, where I think he's going to do okay. I hate losing that guy. What do you think about the Xavier McKinney move?
Yeah, I think that's a really good signing for the Packers. I like so far what the Packers have done. The only thing that really, kind of confused me a little bit was the Aaron Jones thing. Do I think that Josh Jacobs is an upgrade over Aaron Jones? I don't. I think Aaron Jones is better. I understand Josh Jacobs is younger, but Josh Jacobs has been putting lots of tread on the tires the last few years out in Oakland. I mean, they've been handing him the ball every damn play. So it confused me a lot. They wanted Aaron Jones to take a pay cut again when he was the best player on that football team, in my opinion, this past year on offense. I think it's a bad move, and I think Aaron Jones is going to stick it to him if the Vikings can figure something else out with their team. I really like Aaron Jones, and he's been a stalwart of that team for a while. But I did like the McKinney signing. I think that was a good move for them, and they got rid of some dead weight, getting rid of Bakhtiari, who's always hurt, and getting rid of John Runyon and Darnell Savage.
How about you said John Runyon. You're not a big John Runyon fan?
He's all right. He's a serviceable guy. No issues there. But from a contractual standpoint and from the cap standpoint, it made sense for the Packers to move on.
How about Jonah Williams getting out of Cincinnati and going to Arizona?
Yeah, I mean, this guy was kind of the odd man out, remember?
Yep.
They brought in some guys and asked him to move, and he wanted out of there, and was so unhappy with everything, and now he gets his wish. Good luck, have fun in Arizona, buddy. I would have probably kept my mouth shut and played right tackle for the Bengals for the rest of my career, but we don't all get what we want. We'll see what he's made of blocking for Kyler Murray. I think this guy's kind of been underachiever based upon where he was drafted. And, I think a new home was a good thing for him. I think the Bengals will be just fine. And, this was a move that the Cardinals needed because they need offensive linemen in a big way.
Gardner Minshew, surprised he ended up in Vegas?
I'm not. I thought there'd be a bigger market for him, honestly.
Me too.
This is a guy who proved to me last year that he could, severely get it done. And 2 years, $25 million. I think he's the starter in Vegas right now, for sure. And I just think this was a really good signing by the Raiders. They have a guy that he can win games, and I think he's better than Aiden O'Connell in my opinion.
Here's just to add to the Tennessee, Tony Pollard.
You don't want to sign Derrick Henry, but you want to give a bunch of money to Tony Pollard. Okay. Right. I mean, we saw what Tony Pollard was without Zeke, helping him out, and it wasn't real good. So, this is why, nothing against Rand Carthon. Everybody talks about how great he is, and I look at all the moves he makes, and I laugh my ass off because I just think the Titans are in a world of hurt, man. I don't like anything that they've done so far, and the teams in their division are all getting better, and the Titans just continue. They get rid of one of the best coaches in the NFL, in my opinion, with Mike Vrabel. They bring in a guy who's got little to no background, and then this is who you signed: Chidobe Awuzie, Tony Pollard, Mason Rudolph, and Calvin Ridley. That's your this is how you're going to save the Titans? Okay, bud. Good luck.
I mean, Sam Darnold might be the starting quarterback in Minnesota this year.
Yeah. Well, I have no idea what
you've been scratching your head over Minnesota for about the last 18 months, and this just adds to it.
It does. It doesn't make any sense. This is a team that was on the cusp, Joe, of winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And they were right there. They won 14 games, 9 of them by one score. And what do? Well, they don't re-sign Kirk Cousins, which is the biggest thing. They let Delvin Cook walk. They let their best pass rusher walk. It makes no sense. Now they're bringing in Sam Darnold and Andrew Van Ginkel to save the day. I mean, I think that the Vikings are going to be the worst team in that division starting next year. I think the Bears are going to overtake them. Daniel Hunter, who was their second best pass rusher after they let the other guy leave the year before. Daniel Hunter was the only pass rusher they had left. And now he's gone and going to the Texans, which I think is a great move for Houston.
How about Sam Howell? I guess he was traded today to the Redskins. By the Redskins, by the kid.
Yeah, Seattle. I think it's a good move for Seattle. Honestly, you got a backup there, a young guy for Geno that can kind of learn how to be a pro, and if there is anything there with Sam Howell. Then you're good. If there's not, you get rid of them. It's no big deal. And I think they'll probably, to be honest with you, some people may disagree with me, but I think they're still probably going to draft somebody as well.
Well, I think they're definitely going to draft their next. I'm sorry, I'm talking about Washington. We know they're going to draft their quarterback.
Yeah, but I think Seattle's going to draft a quarterback as well.
How about Bobby Wagner going to Washington? I mean, is there much left in his tank? I mean, there's a team that traded Young and Sweat in the middle of last season, possibly your two best linemen, and you bring in an aging superstar linebacker.
He still played pretty well last year. How much does he have left in the tank? I don't know. But I think that Dan Quinn wanted somebody on the field that could help him
Okay.
install his defense and kind of get the young guys on board. And Bobby Wagner's going to do that. He's still going to get you 100 tackles guaranteed. He's still going to make plays, and he's going to be a guy. He's so cerebral. He's going to be a guy that's going to teach while he's on the field and be that coach on the field. I think it's a good move for them.
That's a good point. Back to the overall free agent picture. Teams you were shocked didn't do enough. Teams you were shocked got way better by what they were doing.
Well, the Jets to me was a team that I was kind of surprised. Didn't make any moves. They got Tyrod Taylor. Isaiah Oliver. I mean, they didn't do a whole lot, and they lost their best pass rusher in Bryce Huff. So the Jets to me was kind of a question mark as to what the hell they're doing. The Saints is another question mark. I'm not sure what the hell they're doing there besides losing guys. They're not getting any better in my opinion. The Patriots were another one to me that was kind of confusing. I kind of liked bringing in Jacoby Brissett to be that veteran guy to maybe start the season when they draft their quarterback. Antonio Gibson doesn't do a whole lot for me. Austin Hooper, not in love with him. Taki Kaki, so what? I just they re-signed a lot of their own guys, which to me was kind of a question mark when you're a team that won 4 games. I would have gotten rid of a lot of those dudes. But we'll see. They supposedly have a plan. So far, I'm not really liking the plan.
Dallas is the one, of course. Dallas, everybody cares about Dallas. They either hate them or they love them. A lot of time spent overanalyzing what Dallas didn't do this year. I don't know. Was there anything out there that could have? I mean, of course, Derrick Henry is the obvious, or Saquon, the obvious lack they have of a running back they can depend on. But really, is there anything they really could have done outside of maybe bringing one of those 2 guys in?
Not really. I mean, they're up against it cap wise. They're still trying. They're kind of in limbo right now until they figure out what they're doing with their quarterback. They need to, do an extension with him and take some of this cap hit off of this team so that they can, get some other players. I mean, they're losing guys here at this moment, and they want to get better. So, they're going to have to draft a running back for sure. They're going to have to pick somebody up on the market. I think the Cowboys are a little bit hamstrung right now with what they can do based upon the Dak situation.
How about the Joe Mixon move?
Yeah, I like that one. I like that. I like Joe Mixon. I think he's got a little bit left in the tank. How much, I don't know. But I do think it was a good get for them. And I think Joe is going to be a veteran who will come in and, he's a pro's pro. And I like him. I think he's got a little bit of gas left in the tank. And I think it was a good move.
Oh, who Joe Mixon reminds me of maybe is a poor man's Frank Gore. I think he's one of these guys that's going to last a long time. He gets a little beat up, but never too beat up. And he's very effective. And he wherever he goes, he seems to be that solid guy you can count on, whether it's catching passes, with a little blocking, running the ball. I mean, I think Cincinnati's going to really miss him. Yeah,
I do too. I think they're, a little bit confusing to me what Cincinnati's doing because now T. Higgins isn't happy. They got rid of Tyler Boyd. He's gone. And they got Zach Moss and Chase Brown in the backfield. I think they definitely got worse, in my opinion, right now. And also losing their tackle, was a little bit confusing too, because now they've got Jackson Carman penciled in to start at right tackle, and I'm not sure you want that.
Well, before we go, I mean, I think the most unique thing I've read this week, and I think it's a good move if you think about it, is if Aaron Rodgers actually runs for vice president, maybe the Secret Service can protect him since his offensive line can't.
That would be, maybe that's why he's doing it. He needs some protection. He doesn't feel secure.
Bunch of guys with sunglasses and Uzis. Go ahead, try and rush him.
Yeah. Well, I think they're counting on him. This is another situation. I'm very interested to see what Aaron Rodgers looks like. I'm very interested to see what Kirk Cousins looks like, because they act like that both these guys are just going to be just like they were, and nothing's going to change. And I'm not sold on that. These are serious injuries. Sometimes guys come back and they're never the same. And
Kobe Bryant was never the same after it. You lose your explosiveness.
A lot of guys are never the same. Especially when you're pushing 40 like them.
I read an article about being Testaverde. He said my vertical went. I was never a great vertical, because he goes, now I have nothing, because you just can't push off. There's nothing there. So it is probably the most serious leg injury you can get outside of like a broken femur, or when you dislocate your knee totally. That's got to be the most serious injury. Before we go, a UConn big victory today. Well, I wouldn't say a big victory, but they showed a little weakness in the first half, came back huge numbers in the second half. St. John's, a big time victory over Seton Hall. They now will make the tournament, and I think they could be, with Pitino, you never know what can be done. But I think tonight, I'd like to see Marquette, what they're going to roll out, and of course Creighton. So we should have a good final weekend, or Big East weekend. What about the SEC?
Yeah, so far so good in the SEC. The big name teams still haven't played yet because there's the double bye. South Carolina took care of business today and beat Arkansas 80-66. The South Carolina is one of the biggest stories in all of college basketball that no one's talking about. Right. They're 26-6, 13-5 in the best conference in all of college basketball. They're 13-5, 26-6 overall. No superstars on their entire roster, and they just keep winning. And I think that they're kind of getting overlooked a little bit. And I think they're, you can't sleep on this team. They're legit, and they've been overlooked all year. And I think they're going to be a problem for somebody in this tournament.
Well, the good thing about it, like being overlooked and being a quality team like that, is usually you have a good chance of being put out west. I always look at that Western bracket and say, who can come out of there? Because usually the East and the South and the Midwest are stocked with the blue bloods, because that's where all the TV dollars are. And you get a good team out of the West, they can get to the Final Four pretty easy.
Yeah, and now South Carolina is going to play Auburn tomorrow, 3:30. That's going to be a big time game, and then obviously at 1:00 you got Mississippi State versus Tennessee. Mississippi State took down the Vols once this year, so I think that'll be a good one to watch. But I feel like the Vols should be able to take care of business. But I that Auburn South Carolina game, that game could go either way. And South Carolina is a tough team, and we'll have to see. But then the games that are going on right now will be the two teams that will play Kentucky and Bama. So we already know who's going to play Tennessee. We got Mississippi State. We already know who's going to play Auburn, South Carolina, and we're going to figure it out right now to see who's going to play Kentucky and Alabama. It's going to depend on the seeding, but we got Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and Georgia, Florida.
What about Kansas?
What about them?
Yeah, didn't they lose? Did Kansas basketball lose? Did I see, or did I miss something wrong? No, I wasn't there. No.
In their tournament?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't think they've played yet. I could be wrong on that, but I don't think Kansas has played just yet. I'm pretty sure. Unless they lost on Wednesday. Oh, yeah, they did. They lost to Cincinnati.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, they got beat by Cincinnati. They've kind of fumbled into the end of the season here. They were ranked in the top 5 and just kind of fallen apart. And I'm not really sure 100% why. They've lost 4 out of their last 5, including, like you said, against Cincinnati. They got blown out 72 to 52. And their last game of the season, they played number 1 Houston and lost 76-46. So, I have no idea what the hell's going on, but it doesn't look good right now. They finished up the conference going 10-8, and the Big 12's not that great. So I'm not sure.
Even in great Big 8 years, they're not 10-8. Usually they got 16 wins.
Exactly.
So we will see about that. Any show for you this week?
No, not this week. We got a little bit of Easter action going, or I've got a show on Saturday, and then a card show, and then Sunday I'm taking off. So we're gonna come back probably the week after.
All right. Well, thank everybody for tuning in tonight. We will be back next week. Next week, what we'll do is we're going to take a look at the NCAA tournament. It's the first day of the NCAA tournament. When we get on the air, we'll be about halfway through that day. Take a look at what the brackets are, what we think is going to happen, and who maybe the dark horses are that can maybe just bust up a bracket and break people's hearts like always happens in the NCAAs. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no doubt. As long as Tennessee doesn't have to play Duke in the fucking second round again, I'm good, because that pisses me off to no end.
Yeah, your wife will have to be packing away all the sharp objects.
Man, I've never been so pissed off. I didn't care who played who or who played what, as long as both my teams weren't playing each other in the second damn round. I put them on the opposite sides, so at least one of them has a chance to get far without playing the other one.
My hope is, if you're going to let teams in this year, let's get 2 teams out of the Ivy. There's 3 teams that are deserving to have a good look in the Ivy. Let's get a second Ivy League team in there for once. Yeah,
we talked about it. Their strength of schedule looks pretty good, and I think there's a chance of it. The Will Wade is back in the NCAA tournament. I don't know if you saw that, but he got kicked out of LSU for cheating, and of course is rewarded from cheating with another job at McNeese State. And he turned that school around, man. They were I think I can't remember 5-6-23 or something last year, and this year they won their conference. So when people say cheaters never win, they're obviously not paying attention.
Yeah, that for sure. All right, my friend, have a good weekend. Happy St. Patrick's Day to all you Irish people out there. And
all right,
we will see you later.
All right, man.
All right.